Did you know that nearly 1 in 3 seniors over the age of 65 takes a medication that affects their kidneys? And most don't even realize it until something goes wrong? When I first heard that statistic, it stopped me in my tracks. Because I'm one of them. My doctor, she's 68, monitors my kidney function while I take Lisinopril. And that simple habit, the regular checkups, the conversations, the blood tests, has changed how I look at aging, health, and trust. You see, when I was younger, I thought taking a pill meant the problem was solved. You swallow it, the pain fades, life goes on. But now, in my 70s, I've learned that medication is more like a relationship. It works best when there's communication, honesty, and a little patience on both sides. Have you ever wondered if your blood pressure medicine might be quietly doing more behind the scenes than you realize? Maybe helping, maybe straining another part of your body. That curiosity, mixed with a bit of fear, is exactly where my story begins. Started with a number, 172/96. That was my blood pressure the day my doctor looked at me with those calm, serious eyes. I remember feeling my heart sink. I was 66, still active, still helping at the church, and thought I was doing fine. But that number didn't lie. Dr. Marianne Cole, yes, she's the one I mentioned, leaned forward and said gently, "Eleanor, your heart's working too hard, and it's time we give it some help before it hurts your kidneys." Her tone wasn't alarming, but it had a weight to it. That moment, right there, was the first time anyone had connected my heart and my kidneys in the same sentence. I didn't even know those two had anything to do with each other. I thought kidneys were just little filters doing their job in the background. That's where the curiosity gap started for me. What were my kidneys really doing all this time? How could a blood pressure pill like Lisinopril protect or harm them? I didn't realize then that this question would lead me through a journey of learning, fear, and quiet victories. And it would teach me the importance of one thing we seniors sometimes forget: communication. Because when you're younger, doctors chase you down with advice. When you're older, they listen more, but only if you speak up. Dr. Cole told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Eleanor, we're not treating your blood pressure, we're treating you. And that means we'll walk this path together." That line felt like a promise. I trusted her because she didn't just hand me a prescription. She explained what it would do, what could go wrong, and how we'd keep watch together. She showed me a drawing of a kidney on her notepad, tiny blood vessels winding through like roots of a tree. She said, "When pressure builds up here, Eleanor, those tiny roots can break. Lisinopril helps take that pressure off." Made sense. For the first time, I saw my kidneys not as hidden organs, but as quiet heroes, working endlessly to keep me balanced. If you've ever been in that moment, sitting in a small exam room, papers rustling, fluorescent lights humming overhead, wondering what the doctor's about to say next. You know the feeling. The mix of hope and fear, like standing between two doors, not sure which one will open. That day, I walked out of the clinic with my first bottle of Lisinopril, a small lab order for kidney function tests, and a heart full of questions. Would it really help? Would I feel different? Would my kidneys handle it? But beneath all the doubts was something else. Gratitude. Gratitude that someone cared enough to watch closely. That my doctor didn't just hand me medicine and send me home. She made sure the medicine itself didn't harm the very organs it was meant to protect. And that's the heart of this story. Not fear, but partnership. The partnership between patient and doctor, between medication and monitoring, between aging and awareness. So if you've ever wondered whether your doctor's follow-ups and blood tests really matter, stay with me. Because what happened next, my first few months on Lisinopril, taught me that real healing doesn't just come from a pill. Comes from paying attention, asking questions, and building trust. We'll walk through it together. Every step, every scare, and every small victory that made me realize how precious good communication really is in these golden years. It was a Tuesday morning in late October, the kind of day that smelled faintly of rain and cinnamon toast. Walter, my husband of 45 years, was sitting at the kitchen table reading the newspaper, humming to an old tune from the 60s. I was lacing up my walking shoes, ready to head to the community center for my volunteer shift. Everything felt perfectly ordinary, until it didn't. As I bent down to tie my shoes, a strange heaviness settled in my legs. My ankles looked puffier than usual, and a dull ache pulsed behind my temples. Probably too much salt from the church potluck, I muttered to myself. But Walter glanced over the paper and frowned. "You've been saying that all week, Ellie. Let's just have it checked, please." He had that soft, steady voice that always managed to nudge me in the right direction without making me feel pushed. So, reluctantly, I agreed. By noon, we were at the small local clinic. The nurse, a kind young woman with quick hands, wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm. The cuff tightened, released, and tightened again. Her face changed slightly. Just a flicker of concern, but I caught it. "Let's take that one more time," she said gently. This time she didn't smile. She left the room quietly, and a few minutes later, a woman with silver hair and calm eyes stepped in. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she asked, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Marianne Cole." I didn't know it then, but she would become one of the most important people in my life. She sat beside me, not across from me, and spoke with the kind of authority that didn't need volume. "Your blood pressure is 172/96, she said softly. "That's quite high. Tell me, have you been feeling dizzy or short of breath?" I hesitated. "Just a bit tired lately. My ankles swell sometimes." She nodded slowly, listening with real attention, the kind that made me feel safe enough to tell the truth. "I'm glad you came in," she said. "When blood pressure stays high, it can quietly damage your heart and kidneys without showing symptoms at first." That word, kidneys, hung in the air like an unfamiliar tune. "My kidneys," I repeated. "What do they have to do with my blood pressure?" Dr. Cole reached for a notepad and began to draw tiny loops and tubes. "Think of your kidneys as filters," she explained. "When pressure inside these delicate tubes stays high, they get damaged. Over time they stop filtering properly. Lisinopril, which I'll likely start you on, helps relax those blood vessels so your kidneys can rest." It was the first time a doctor had explained something so clearly to me. Not with medical jargon but with care. Still, fear crept in. I'd always prided myself on being strong, taking care of others, not needing much myself. Now, hearing the words damage and kidneys in the same breath as my name felt like a small earthquake under my feet. I glanced at Walter sitting quietly in the corner. He gave me that reassuring smile, the one that said, "We'll get through this together." Dr. Cole ordered a few tests that afternoon. Blood work to check kidney function, electrolytes, and something called creatinine. I remember thinking, how did I get here? Just days ago, I was baking apple pie for the church bazaar, and now I was waiting for lab results. When she came back with the results, she smiled faintly. "Good news, Eleanor. Your kidneys are still healthy, but they're showing early strain. We can stop this from getting worse if we act now." Now. Those words became my wake-up call. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket over my knees, the autumn wind brushing against my face. I thought about everything Dr. Cole said. About how something inside me had been struggling quietly while life just carried on. Maybe that's how aging sneaks up on you. Not with loud warnings, but with soft whispers you ignore until someone wise enough helps you listen. I looked at Walter, who had brought out 2 mugs of chamomile tea. "You know," I said, "maybe this is my sign to slow down." Maybe it's time to start paying attention to me." He chuckled. "Well, it only took 70 years for you to say that." We both laughed, but deep down I felt the weight of something new, a mix of fear and determination. Because I realized that day, the day everything changed, that my health wasn't just about surviving. It was about learning, listening, and trusting the right people to help me stay around for many more sunrises. Sometimes one doctor's calm voice, one honest conversation, can redirect the story of your entire life. Have you ever had that kind of day? The one that starts ordinary but ends up changing how you see everything. Your body, your choices, your future. That was my day. And it was only the beginning. The following week, I sat once again in Dr. Cole's office. The walls were lined with framed photos of her garden. Lavender, roses, and something she said was a peace lily. Somehow, those flowers made the room feel less like a clinic and more like a safe space. She smiled as she opened my chart. "Eleanor, your tests look steady enough to start you on a small dose of Lisinopril. We'll begin gently, 5 milligrams a day." He paused, meeting my eyes. "It's not just about lowering your blood pressure. It's also about giving your kidneys a break. Think of it as easing their workload, not punishing them." Her tone was calm and patient, like a teacher explaining something important to a dear student. She even drew another simple picture: 2 tiny bean-shaped kidneys with narrow tubes. She shaded them lightly, saying, "These little filters keep your body in balance. Too much pressure makes them leak. Lisinopril helps stop that." I nodded, trying to take it all in. But inside, my thoughts were swirling. Would this pill make me dizzy? Would I feel weaker? I had heard whispers in the senior center, stories of people feeling worse after starting blood pressure medication. Dr. Cole must have seen the worry on my face. She leaned back slightly, folding her hands. "You might notice a little dry cough, maybe some lightheadedness if you stand too quickly. But we'll check your labs often. If anything feels off, you call me. Not later, not next month, immediately." It was the way she said it that made me trust her. Like she truly meant we were in this together. That evening, I held the small white tablet in my palm. Walter poured me a glass of water and said half-jokingly, "To your health, my love." I smiled, though part of me felt the tremor of vulnerability that comes with every first step into the unknown. I swallowed it. Simple as that. The next morning, I woke up with no drama, just the sound of birds outside and the gentle rhythm of life continuing. My blood pressure started to settle, slowly but surely. After 2 weeks, it dropped from 172/96 to 148/84. Not perfect, but progress. Still, I noticed a soft tickle in my throat, a faint dry cough that visited mostly at night. I mentioned it to Dr. Cole at my next appointment. She smiled knowingly. "That's common, Eleanor. We'll keep an eye on it. If it worsens, we'll switch to something else. But remember, that cough is a sign your body is adjusting. It's the medicine working on your blood vessels." And she was right. After a few weeks, the cough faded, and my energy began to return. But what truly surprised me wasn't the change in my body. It was the new sense of awareness growing in my mind. For the first time, I started noticing things. How my body responded to stress, what salt really did to me, how much better I felt on days I stayed hydrated. Every month, Dr. Cole ordered kidney function tests. She explained that while lisinopril often protects kidneys, it can sometimes cause stress if dehydration or other factors come into play. So she watched carefully, like a gardener tending her plants, pruning gently but with purpose. I began to look forward to those appointments, oddly enough. They weren't just about numbers anymore. They were about connection, understanding, teamwork. One afternoon, as she reviewed my results, she said something that stayed with me. "Eleanor, medicine is powerful, but awareness is stronger. My job is to watch your kidneys. Your job is to listen to your body. Together we make a good team." That day, I walked out of her office feeling lighter. Not cured, not finished, but confident. I wasn't just taking a pill. I was participating in my healing. And that shift, from fear to partnership, changed everything about how I saw my health from that point on. Have you ever had that moment? When something that once felt scary suddenly becomes part of your strength? That's exactly what Lisinopril became for me. Not a burden, but a bridge between fear and peace. A few months into my Lisinopril journey, I began to realize something I'd never thought much about before. My kidneys. Funny, isn't it? We spend most of our lives not even thinking about these two little organs, quietly working in the background, cleaning our blood, balancing our fluids, keeping us alive, until one day they demand our attention. Dr. Cole had a way of making complicated things simple. She once told me, "Eleanor, think of your kidneys like two coffee filters. When your blood pressure stays too high for too long, it's like forcing water through an old worn-out filter. Eventually, it starts to leak." That image stuck with me. I could almost see those filters, straining, struggling under the pressure. "So," I asked her once, "Lisinopril helps take the pressure off those filters?" She smiled. "Exactly. It relaxes the vessels so blood can move smoothly, and it helps protect those filters from bursting." That made sense to me, finally something I could understand. But she didn't stop there. She explained why monitoring was essential, especially for someone my age. "Sometimes," she said, "the very medicine that helps can also stress the kidneys if your body isn't hydrated, or if other meds interact. That's why we do blood tests, not to scare you but to see the full picture." Those words gave me comfort. It wasn't just about reacting to problems. It was about staying ahead of them. I started to see my checkups differently, not as chores but as checkpoints on a journey. Each result told a story. How my body was adapting, how my kidneys were holding steady, how this new chapter of my health was unfolding. There was a kind of peace in that. I also began reading more. Not obsessively, but curiously. I learned that kidney issues affect about 1 in 7 adults, and that high blood pressure is one of the leading causes of kidney damage worldwide. I remember sitting back in my chair after reading that and whispering, "1 in 7. Suddenly felt personal. I thought of friends my age, some still unaware of how their kidneys were coping under years of untreated hypertension. And I quietly promised myself, I wouldn't be one of them. It wasn't fear that drove me. It was gratitude. Gratitude that I had a doctor who cared, a husband who supported me, and a second chance to keep my health on track. Sometimes the smallest shift in understanding changes everything. Once I saw my kidneys not as organs I didn't understand, but as partners quietly working for me, I started treating them with more care. Drinking more water, watching my salt, avoiding unnecessary painkillers. And in return they kept working. Faithfully, quietly, like they always had. Maybe that's what health really is in our golden years. Not perfection but partnership. I wish I could say everything went smoothly once I started on Lisinopril. But that wouldn't be the truth. Real life, as we know, rarely moves in straight lines. A few weeks in, I began noticing something unsettling. My energy seemed to dip lower than usual. I'd walk up the stairs and feel my heart beating harder than before. And sometimes, there was this dry cough that refused to leave. First I brushed it off. Just getting older, I told myself. But deep down I knew I needed to say something. So at my next appointment I told Dr. Cole everything. Every cough, every dizzy spell, every strange feeling. She didn't rush me. She listened, pen resting on her notepad, eyes steady on mine. Then she said, "Eleanor, thank you for telling me. You're doing exactly what you should. Turns out that dry cough is a common side effect of lisinopril. For some people it fades. For others it lingers. Dr. Cole explained that if it got too bothersome, we could consider alternatives. But for now, since my blood pressure and kidney function were improving, she suggested we monitor it closely. It was one of those small but real challenges that test your patience. I remember standing by the kitchen window one morning, coughing softly, holding my cup of tea and thinking, is this really worth it? But then I looked at the monitor on my table. My blood pressure had dropped from 158/92 to a calm 128/76. I hadn't seen numbers like that in years. That gave me hope. Still, there were days when frustration crept in. Times when I missed a pill by mistake or felt anxious waiting for blood test results. One evening I told my husband Harold, I feel like my life revolves around numbers now. Pressure, creatinine, GFR, milligrams. I just want to feel normal again. He smiled gently and said, maybe normal isn't the goal anymore, love. Maybe it's better than before. That stayed with me. To keep my spirits up, I began keeping a little health journal. Nothing fancy. Just a small notebook with my readings, meals, and how I felt each day. Writing became a comfort. I noticed patterns. How staying hydrated helped. How walking after dinner eased my sleep. How the cough was lighter when I avoided cold drinks. I also started joining a small senior wellness group at our community center. Every Thursday we met to share stories, recipes, and laughter. Some were on lisinopril too. Others took different medications. We compared notes, swapped tips, and reminded each other that none of us were alone in this journey. One of the ladies, Margaret, once said, it's funny, isn't it? We used to talk about vacations and grandkids. Now we talk about blood tests and side effects. But it's the same love for life that keeps us here. And she was right. Beneath all the talk about numbers and pills was something far more powerful. The desire to stay alive, healthy, and present for the people we love. The biggest challenge, I realized, wasn't the cough or the blood tests. It was the mental weight of managing a chronic condition, that quiet anxiety that hums in the background, whispering, what if? What if my kidneys get worse? What if the medicine stops working? What if I forget a dose? But each time those thoughts came, I reminded myself, I wasn't fighting this alone. I had a caring doctor, a supportive partner, and the wisdom of experience. Dr. Cole once told me, Eleanor, health isn't about never falling. It's about getting up, checking your balance, and walking again, just like life. And that's exactly what I did. Every checkup, every test, every adjustment, it was a small victory. A quiet proof that progress doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. If you've ever felt tired of the routine or frustrated by side effects, know this: your perseverance matters. Each pill you take, each meal you choose carefully, each conversation you have with your doctor, it's all a form of love. Love for your body. Love for your life. Love for the years still waiting ahead. It's amazing how the smallest victories can light up our days. Especially when you've walked through the fog of uncertainty. For me, it began with a simple number. One morning I checked my blood pressure before breakfast. 122/74. I blinked, checked again. The numbers held steady. I smiled so wide that Harold, sitting at the table with his crossword puzzle, said, "What's that grin about?" I turned the monitor toward him like I'd just won the lottery. That tiny screen told me something powerful. I was getting better. Slowly, steadily, but surely. It wasn't just the medicine. It was everything working together. The water I drank faithfully, the salt I learned to love less, the evening walks, and the laughter shared with my wellness group. It's funny how success in our later years often comes dressed in modest clothes. A good lab result, a lighter step, A calm morning without dizziness. No parades, no applause. Just peace. Dr. Cole was thrilled when she saw my progress. "Keep doing exactly what you're doing," she said, looking over my results. "Your kidneys are stable, and your heart sounds strong." That phrase, "your kidneys are stable," became my new comfort. Like a gentle reassurance that I was on the right path. Of course, I didn't make every change overnight. Old habits are stubborn. I used to love salted peanuts while watching evening TV. Now I portion them into a tiny bowl and make sure I drink a full glass of water afterward. I swapped red meat for grilled fish, discovered the joy of baked sweet potatoes, and even started growing parsley on my windowsill. Each adjustment felt like a small conversation between me and my body. You take care of me, and I'll take care of you. One particularly heartwarming moment came at my granddaughter Lily's birthday. Usually after long family gatherings, I'd feel drained. But that evening I was up on my feet, helping with decorations, laughing, even dancing a little to her favorite song. My daughter noticed. "Mom, you look energized." And I laughed, touching my chest gently. Lisinopril and I are finally getting along. But beyond the medication, it was the mindset shift that mattered most. I stopped seeing health as a list of things I had to do and started seeing it as something I got to do. Got to move. Got to nourish. I got to wake up every morning with another chance to do it all again. To any of my friends out there watching this who feel overwhelmed, please know your progress doesn't have to be dramatic to be real. Sometimes it's just drinking your water, showing up for your checkup, or saying no to that extra pinch of salt. Those choices may seem small, but together they build a bridge back to strength. Dr. Cole once said something that stayed with me. "Eleanor, aging doesn't mean giving up control. It means learning to work with your body, not against it." That's what this phase of life has become for me. A partnership. A quiet rhythm between my choices and my care. Between the medicine that helps me and the lifestyle that sustains me. And through it all, I've learned that healing isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's just the simple joy of feeling good enough to take a deep breath, and knowing your kidneys are still doing their quiet, noble work beneath it all. Sometimes I sit by the window with my cup of chamomile tea and think about how far I've come. It's strange how the road to better health doesn't always begin with grand resolutions. Sometimes it begins with one small pill and a doctor who truly listens. When I first heard the words lisinopril and kidney monitoring, I felt uneasy. I didn't want my life to revolve around test results and appointments. But now I see that each of those moments, every visit, every lab draw, every conversation, was a step toward understanding my body in a way I never had before. Dr. Cole, my steady 68-year-old guide through this process, taught me something invaluable. Healthcare isn't just about numbers. It's about partnership. She once told me, "Eleanor, my job is to walk beside you, not in front of you." And she did just that. We celebrated small wins together. When my kidney numbers stayed stable, when my blood pressure held steady, when my cough began to ease. She encouraged me to notice what felt good, not just what looked good on paper. Over time, I realized something profound. This journey wasn't only about managing a condition. It was about reclaiming a sense of peace and purpose. I wasn't just surviving with high blood pressure. I was learning to thrive despite it. There were still quiet fears that crept in at night. What if my kidneys worsened? What if one day the medicine stopped working? But then I'd remember the progress, the mornings I felt clear-headed, the walks that no longer left me breathless, the joy of knowing my heart and kidneys were working together again. It's amazing how the body, even in our later years, can surprise us with its strength. And I think that's what I want to say most to anyone listening right now. Don't underestimate what your body can do when you care for it with patience and consistency. There will be days when you feel tired, when the medicine feels like too much, when the side effects test your patience. But there will also be days when you wake up feeling light, steady, calm, and realize you've crossed another milestone quietly, almost without noticing. For me, that's what hope looks like now. Not some distant finish line, but the daily decision to keep showing up for myself. I've also learned that healing doesn't happen in isolation. My husband's reminders to drink water, my daughter's calls after appointments, Dr. Cole's careful guidance. All of it forms a web of support that keeps me strong. None of us are meant to do this alone. So, if you're watching this and managing your own health, maybe it's Lisinopril, maybe it's something else, remember your story matters. Your resilience matters. Each step you take, even the small ones, adds up to something extraordinary. And please talk to your doctor. Questions. Don't be shy about your symptoms or your fears. The best care starts with honest communication. I used to think speaking up would make me sound like a worrier, but now I know it makes me wise. Looking back, I see this journey not as a burden, but as a gift. A second chance to understand my body, to slow down, and to live with more intention. These days, when I see my blood pressure monitor resting on the table, I don't see it as a reminder of illness. I see it as a symbol of partnership between me, my doctor, and the years still waiting for me. And if my story helps even one of you feel more hopeful, more curious, or more empowered to take that next step in your own journey, then sharing it has been worth every word. Because, my friends, the golden years aren't just about aging gracefully. They're about living wisely, loving deeply, and learning that health isn't about perfection. It's about connection. So tell me, how do you take care of your health these days? What little victories have you celebrated lately? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments, because every voice adds strength to this beautiful shared journey we're all on together. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, friends. If there's one thing my journey with Lisinopril has taught me, it's that health in our golden years isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about showing up for yourself, one choice, one pill, one conversation at a time. I hope my story. My doctor, 68, monitors my kidney function while I take Lisinopril. Reminds you that medicine isn't something to fear. When used wisely and monitored with care, it can become one of our strongest allies in staying independent, strong, and hopeful. So keep talking to your doctor. Keep asking questions. Keep celebrating those small victories, because they're the steps that lead to lasting change. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own health journey, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your thoughts, your challenges, your wins. Let's grow this beautiful community together. And don't forget to subscribe for more Golden Years health stories. Real voices, real journeys, and gentle reminders that every heartbeat is still a blessing. Until next time, take care of your heart. And your kidneys too.